So today I want to recognize the Armenian Genocide that began on April 24th, 1915 as part of the Ottoman Turk Empire in World War I. And why this is important, there's two reasons why this is important. One, the Armenian Genocide is not taught in schools. I didn't learn about it in school. I had to learn about it from outside of school. And two, the Turkish government still denies over 100 years later that the genocide actually happened. And I'm going to go into, and I'm going to reference a bunch of articles, and I'll put a bunch of links in the show notes below of, first of all, this did happen. It's a genocide that happened. It's well documented. There's even Turkish scholars have come out to say that this happened. There's photographic evidence, and the Turkish government has long held the belief that it wasn't a genocide. You know, a genocide is a systematic, planned out, organized about this group of people. No, there was some mass murders and stuff. It was awful. But it was all part of war. Hey, a lot of Turks died in the war too. That's sort of been Turkey's stance. And so what happened basically, I'll give you a quick history lesson. The Ottoman Empire was allies with Germany. And they were starting, I'm not going to go into all of World War I's history, but as World War I was starting to accelerate, they decided to get rid of the Armenian people, and they just butchered some and made people go on these they turned them into refugees, basically like the Trail of Tears, like we did with the Native Americans here in the country, in the United States. So it's roughly 1.5 million Armenians were killed during that time. And as I've been talking a lot about on this show, what America is actually doing and why America is actually doing things. And America will not acknowledge the Armenian Genocide. Why? Because we are allies with Turkey, and we have missile bases in Turkey, and they're a strategic ally in the Middle East. Obama, when he was a senator in 2007, acknowledged the Armenian Genocide and even campaigned saying he was going to talk about it, and even got the Armenian votes, because the country with the second largest Armenian population is the good old US of A. And then he became president and said, no. The military-industrial complex, the deep state, the corporate state, whatever you want to call it, said, oh, no, you're not going to say that. And even on April 24th, I think 2014, he would say, oh, yeah, my personal views are well known. So he wouldn't say it. He was like, I've already said Armenian genocide, so I'm not going to say it again. And he couldn't officially say it when he was president because of the pressure from Turkey. And it's just preposterous. So I'm going to put these links below because I want you guys to do your own research on what actually happened. The history of the Armenian Genocide. I'll read a couple stats from this, and then I'll go into the countries that are recognizing it, and then another surprising country that does not recognize the Armenian Genocide. So the other thing too, Germany last summer, I believe in June of 2016, they passed a resolution to acknowledge the Armenian Genocide. And since Germany was allies with the Ottoman Empire, they were a big part of the discussion, and the reasoning for passing the bill is we need to accept our responsibility in this, because in Germany, the Holocaust from World War II is by law taught. You cannot not talk about it. You have to teach it in schools. The Turkish government, by law, you are not allowed to talk about it. You are not allowed to mention it. You can go to jail, or even worse if you do that. So what had happened, now I'll read quickly. In 1915, leaders of the Turkish government set in motion a plan to expel and massacre Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire. Though reports vary, most sources agree that there were about 2 million Armenians in the Ottoman Empire at the time of the massacre. By the early 1920s, when the massacres and deportations finally ended, some 1.5 million of Turkey's Armenians were dead, with many more forcibly removed from the country. Today, most historians call this event a genocide, a premeditated and systematic campaign to exterminate an entire people. And this article goes into the details of it, which is important to read. But what's happening today is just more of our oil-fueled geopolitical bullshit. And so what happened in Germany, a bunch of Turks over the decades emigrated to Germany, and they started working up. They were an immigrant workforce, and then they got their way into the cabinet and parliament and stuff like that and helped pass this law. Now they're banned from Turkey. They cannot go into Turkey. So there's another country that will not acknowledge the Armenian genocide, and it's Israel. I'm going to say that again. Israel will not acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And there's people within Israel, they're like, this is nonsense. This is complete nonsense. Guess why they won't do it? It's more oil nonsense. Israel has a conspicuously close relationship with Azerbaijan. I cannot pronounce. I'm sorry. I'm not good at pronouncing these. A Muslim majority state that, like Armenia, emerged after the collapse of the Soviet Union. Israel imports 40% of its oil from Azerbaijan and exports a considerable supply of weapons and defense systems to Baku. Armenia and Azerbaijan do not get along and still feud over the disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, a largely Armenian enclave inside Azerbaijan that the two countries battled over shortly after winning independence in 1991. So there's the Archbishop of the Jerusalem Armenian Church, Aris Shirvanian. We, the Armenians and the Jewish people, have suffered the same fate, and the Armenian genocide has served as a predecessor to the Jewish Holocaust. So Israel should have been actually one of the first countries to support and recognize the Armenian genocide. Yeah. So Germany acknowledges the genocide before Israel and the United States. Okay, yeah, that's ridiculous. And so the side of the Turks that are like, oh, this didn't happen and all this other stuff, there's enough concrete evidence to suggest that it happened. You have a Turkish scholar, Professor Halil Berktay of Istanbul Sabancı University, said right around the time of the coup, Turkey, so Berktay, a liberal Turkish scholar, told El Pai, a news organization, that he has repeatedly recognized the Armenian genocide ever since 2002. He described the genocide as a near-complete extermination and annihilation of Ottoman Armenians. Acknowledged that for his honest views, the Armenian genocide, especially before 2002 and even afterwards. So, and he was taught, so I've talked to some Turks about this. They say, oh, and they're just taught countrywide, you're not, this didn't happen and you're not allowed to acknowledge it. And so this scholar, he started studying at Yale, and when he was at Yale studying and learned about the Armenian genocide, he broke down in tears because he was like, oh my God, I didn't realize my country had done this, and we need to acknowledge this. Why it's important to acknowledge it is because that's the other thing why a more American hypocrisy. We're all never again, right? And Israel says that, oh, never again. We can never let this happen again. Well, you know, Hitler used what the Ottomans did to the Armenians. He was like, oh, Is anyone defending the Armenians? Nope. No one will defend the Jews. So this is where we're at. And the Armenian country as it is today, so Armenia got refuge in the Soviet Union around 1918-ish, and they were part of the Soviet Union until the Soviet Union collapsed in whatever, 88, 89. They formed their own country, but they have no resources. They're landlocked. They have no ports. They have no oil. They have no minerals for cell phones or anything like that. No diamonds, no nothing. So they have no power. So no one is defending them. And there's 20-some nations, including Russia and France and Germany, that acknowledge the Armenian genocide. And the United States and Israel will not, which is ridiculous. So I'm going to say a couple things. If there's anyone out there who's watching this who's Turkish, who's like, oh, Graham, no, you're wrong. I really want to see your hard evidence. I really, and also before you even do that or after you do that, what's wrong with acknowledging this? What is the problem? I know that there are some hardline Armenians that like, we want reparations and we want, we want land. We want to get our land back, and the Turkish government will, some maybe people think will never happen. Okay, well, whatever. I know you might be like, Graham, you can't just say whatever. Yeah, I just said it. I just said whatever. Just acknowledge it. The Turkish government could come out and say, yeah, it was awful. It happened over 100 years ago. It was a horrible thing, and we're sorry that it happened, and we're going to at least acknowledge this, that it happened. And the United States needs to come forward and do this. Because if there's Turkish scholars and Turkish immigrants in other countries like Germany that are helping this happen, here's the thing I've talked about before on the show. There's a problem in not just America, but the world of just, oh, I got to back my team. I'm Turkish, so I gotta say the genocide didn't happen. No, you don't. I'll give you a personal example. I'm Irish, right? I was raised Catholic. I was told at the time of a small boy that the IRA, you got to support the Irish Republican Army. I was told that. That's what I was told. England had done awful things to the Irish. The IRA were justified. Sinn Féin, ourselves alone, right? 1908 or 09, I think, Sinn Féin. That Sinn Féin became then the political arm of the IRA. As I got older and started doing more research, I was like, well, wait a minute. The IRA, they killed a lot of women and children. They did a lot of, U2 did. I first learned about it kind of through U2 and the Sunday Bloody Sunday, and Bono would go on these things at the live shows talking about this ain't right. And, I'm tired of this. And so I started to say, well, wait, this isn't right. I was raised Catholic. The Catholic Church is great. I started to see the Catholic Church do things that were wrong, a lot of horrible things. And I was like, this ain't right. And I'm not just backing it. I'm not just doing that thing. Well, that's my team, right? I'm an Irish Catholic from Chicago. So I'm a Cub fan. I support the Catholic Church, and I'm a Democrat. Those are my teams. Nope. So if you're Turkish, you got to ask yourself, this ain't right. This isn't right, and what do you lose by acknowledging this? It's the right thing to do. We all need to start just saying what's the right thing to do, not just backing our team. I don't want Trump to be president, so I'm going to back Hillary, but the Democrats are corrupt. You have to acknowledge that. And if you're unwilling to do that, if you want to just be right versus find the truth, then there's going to be problems. So we absolutely have to acknowledge this. And if you're an American, call your senators and representatives and say the American government needs to, because they've Adam Schiff, who's he's a congressman here in California, and he has the district that's Glendale and Pasadena. Glendale is a very high Armenian percentage community here in Southern California. So they've tried to pass some legislation here in America to acknowledge the Armenian genocide. So petition your lawmakers to do this. Call an email and say, we need to make this a reality. Because look what we're doing, and if Germany can do it, we can. If Russia can acknowledge it, we can. So it's the right thing to do. And ask yourself, if you're like, oh, it didn't happen, ask yourself, what do you lose by acknowledging this? And don't we all want to make the world a better place? We need to acknowledge the awful things that happened. We really do. We can't sweep them under the rug and pretend they didn't. We need to acknowledge that America is currently bombing, and has been for years, the Middle East, and creating a lot of, we're killing a lot of civilians. Hundreds and probably in the thousands. We're doing that. And we can't just say, well, America, I'm an American, so my country's right. It doesn't work. Don't do that. So I appreciate you guys watching this, and I, CNN, this gets covered a little bit. There's always a big march by the Turkish embassy here in Los Angeles every April 24th, so it gets a little media coverage, but I want to talk about it more. And this is what I want to do, and if anyone's new to the show, thank you for watching, and a great way to support this is put it on social media and spread the word on this. I want to spread the word on stuff that most people don't know about, and we're not studying Armenian genocides in American schools. So, and then you can support this as independent media. No one's telling me what I can or cannot say. It's not like Turkish Airlines is buying a bunch of ad time on my show and then could say, oh, we might pull our ads if you keep talking about this Armenian genocide. See how that works? It could be something like that. So the Patreon link is below, and it's a great way for you to donate to the show. And yeah, thanks for watching, you guys. Thanks for staying vigilant and giving me the support to dig and find these stories, and do your own research too. Thanks for watching.